Hi guys, I'm Karel Segers and today I'm in Wellington, the capital of New Zealand at the bottom of the North Island. I'm here courtesy of the New Zealand Film Commission working with a number of filmmaking teams, and I can't share much about this specific work because I'm bound by confidentiality, but I can tell you a few things about what I promised in an earlier video. First, the question, how do you know that you have the right main character for your story? How do you know you have the right protagonist? Well, one test I always do is look at the final action, the major action at the end of your story at the third act climax. That is usually performed by the main character. Once you've got that, make sure that the event or the inciting incident, the call to adventure, also happens to that particular character. And then you also know which character you have to keep active throughout the story. Another question I received was, can you use the same method of writing loglines that we encourage on logline.it for television shows? And the answer is yes, you can. Often it's easier to do it for episodes, in particular for episodic television, and not so much for whole series concept ideas. Now, you can do it, but you'll focus primarily on the event. Take Breaking Bad. In Breaking Bad, the event is the chemistry teacher who's diagnosed with cancer, and then the action is that he's going to cook meth to provide for his family. And what would be a weakness for a feature film is the open-ended goal, because how long is he going to do that for? Now, for a TV show, it's great because you can keep milking that concept. Another show, The Americans, their possible event would be that these KGB agents learn that across the street lives an FBI agent. And finally, an older show, maybe you know 6 Feet Under. That show started with the father of a family of undertakers dying, and then the dysfunctional family needs to band together, overcome their differences to keep the business together, to keep the business running. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? Can you do the logline or at least identify the components for Arrested Development? And with a glimpse of the amazing Te Papa Museum in the background, I wanted to introduce a few loglines I'm going to review from a Kiwi viewer of the videos, and that's Dean, who sent in a few loglines for review. You guys already know where we're going for these loglines. This is the website, Logline.it or logline.it. And look, we've got 5,002 loglines. We've made it. That's a nice milestone. The next one will be 25,000 reviews. I wonder when that's going to happen. I predict it'll be before the end of this year. So where are Dean's loglines? Here they are. The first one. On the night of his big break, an up-and-coming comedian interrupts a pharmacy robbery, triggering a madcap chain of events as he races against the gang and the clock to get back to the theater. So Dean is not following our traditional setup with the word when, but you can easily transform this logline into that formula if you want to. When an up-and-coming comedian accidentally interrupts a pharmacy robbery on the night of his big break, he must race against the gang and the clock to get back to the theater. Triggering a madcap chain of events, that's kind of a bonus. It sounds great, and if you have the word count, why not add it in? So we've got the character, up-and-coming comedian. I'd like to have some sort of a psychological qualifier here if he does these things, accidentally doing stupid stuff. Maybe he's a mumbling and stumbling, clumsy type of comedian, so that's a potential character arc there. He triggers a madcap chain of events by interrupting that robbery. It feels like that's an action and not an event. But it's easy to see how he didn't do that on purpose. All right, so it kind of happened to him. It was beyond his control. So for me, it passes for an event. It's not super clean. It's not, cut and dry, but good enough for an event. And the action is crystal. So he races against the gang and the clock to get back to the theater. Clear endpoint, we can visualize that, and there's a ticking clock. So good logline for what could be a solid comedic concept. If you want to send us loglines, you can do that by posting them at the bottom of this video, or to go straight to logline.it and then email me, and then maybe I can review that logline in one of our future videos. Let's look at another logline by Dean. Our second logline by Dean from New Zealand. A reluctant babysitter tries to spook his little sister, telling a gruesome bedtime story of a young girl's perilous journey through a dangerous kingdom, carrying her father's living head in search of his fleeing body. This is a tricky one because it feels like there's two stories, or a story on two different levels. And it opens with an action, not an event. The reluctant babysitter, who's the main character here? Let's assume it's the babysitter. The reluctant babysitter tries to spook his little sister, but what motivates this? Why does he do this? So the action is clear. However, you might ask, what is the anticipated outcome? So how long is he going to spook his sister for? Until the story's over, but what does he want to achieve with it? So I'd like to see that in the logline as well. And also, obviously, the event that triggers this. Why does he do this now? Then there's this other story, the embedded story, the bedtime story of a young girl's perilous journey through a dangerous kingdom, carrying her father's living head in search of his fleeing body. Now, I'm totally excited by this. That's an image that I just totally love instantly. It's a strong, disturbing, but at the same time mythical image, and I'm sure that this can be delivered within a palatable context, within a palatable tone. It has an adventure flavor to it. So I'm excited about the potential of this story, but it is hellishly difficult to combine these two levels of stories into one logline. It's a little bit like The Princess Bride, and I think that's mentioned in the reviews as well. And yeah, it's not easy, but when you have two stories, how are you going to integrate that in one logline? So my recommendation is, if the frame story matters, and it should, then you should essentially do two loglines. You should do a logline for the frame story that works in its own right, and then a logline for the embedded story. So there you go, more work. But all in all, well done, Dean. I want to see this one on the screen. That's it for this episode coming from Wellington, New Zealand. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a like. Even better, please subscribe to the channel, and I hope you'll be there again for our next video. See you then. Bye.